Hello everyone, once again my name is Juan Maravilla and I would like to welcome you to this video today where I go ahead and break down the basic cycle of refrigeration. Having a basic understanding of how our air conditioning system works, how we get our cooling during the summertime and how we get our heating during the wintertime. That being said, this right here of what I have written down on this whiteboard are known as your four major components. Make sure you go ahead and write that down. Make sure you go ahead and remember that, because as I continue to post these videos and this content, have an understanding that the four major components are what are going to be described and talked about a lot because they make up a big portion and they're very important components to your air conditioning system. So yeah, let's go ahead and go over the basic cycle of refrigeration. Now, whenever we talk about the basic cycle of refrigeration, we always want to have a starting point. And what is my starting point? Okay, well, my starting point is going to be here, the compressor. So some of y'all may know what the compressor is, some of y'all may not know what the compressor is, but just having an understanding of the word compressor, what does the word compressor mean? Like whenever we hear the word compressor, what does it normally mean? Well, when I hear the word compressor, something that's being compressed is something that's possibly being squeezed, right? So if we have an understanding of something as being squeezed, normally something that's being squeezed, if we think about pressure and if we think about temperature, what are we going to go ahead and come to a conclusion about pressure and temperature? Well, whenever something is squeezed, all right, the energy that's being produced, it's much higher, right? So that means that, is my temperature going to go down or is my temperature going to go up? So my temperature in reality is going to go up. So that means that if my temperature goes up, my pressure goes up. So remember that. That's going to be very important to have a better understanding of how my air conditioning system works, or the cycle of refrigeration works, with these four major components. So remember that. If your temperature goes up, your pressure goes up. Now, if your pressure drops down, your temperature drops down. So what's going on here is, if I start off with my major component here on my compressor, well, what is it that I have that are connecting these components together, and what's inside that connection that allows my air conditioning system to work the way it does? Well, if you see these lines, all these lines that are connected, these lines right here are made of a type of metal known as copper, or they're known as your copper line or your copper refrigeration line set. All right. So we have copper lines, all these right here that you see, and these squiggly lines all around, all are known as your copper lines. Now, inside of these copper lines, there's a chemical and subtype of material that is used, that go hand in hand with these systems, that allow for you to either extract heat from inside of your home, or they allow to go ahead and reject heat from inside your home. And that is known as a refrigerant, or that is known as the refrigerant, right? So we gotta have an understanding that this system is known as a closed, or you should have a closed and sealed system. That means that all these copper lines is just one complete circuit. So it's like saying that it's just a complete circle. But of course, we have these bends and these twists and these turns. All right, and those turns and these twists, they're very important. They're important. Why? Because we have to have an understanding of, if the refrigerant travels the way it travels, it's going to go ahead and do something in your air conditioning system that's going to help it function the way where we need it to either heat up my home or cool down my home during either the summertime or the wintertime. Now, if we start off in my compressor is going to go ahead and squeeze what's inside. And what was inside of the system? Well, the refrigerant, right? So the refrigerant is going to go ahead and be squeezed. And as I'm squeezing that refrigerant, what's rising? Remember what was rising? So if I'm squeezing the refrigerant, the temperature is rising and the pressure is rising as well. All right, so that refrigerant is being squeezed into what's known as my discharge line, and boom, it's being sent into my condenser. For my condenser, I'm going to go ahead and have it travel inside of the condenser, and then it's going to go all the way into my metering device. So my metering device, just, come and think of maybe like a spray bottle. You know how you have a spray bottle, when you spray, it mists out? Well, just imagine you squeezing that trigger and you have a continuous mist, just continue to spray over and over and over again. And that's what my metering device does. You have all this amount of liquid refrigerant coming into my one side of my metering device, and there's something inside that's going to say, hey, hold on, I don't need you all at once, so I need to meter you for a little bit. I need to go ahead and allow you to pass through here, but only a little bit at a time. And so it's going to allow that mist and that spray to go ahead and go and continue to drop to enter my now what's called my evaporator. But remember, my compressor, it squeezed, right? It squeezed my refrigerant, and because it squeezed my refrigerant, what did it do? It rose the temperature and it rose the pressure, right? So all this here is nothing but hot gas that's traveling through my condenser. As it's going into the metering device, once again, the metering device is saying, hey, whoa, hold on. As it's doing that, it's slowing it down. And as it's slowing something down, yes, once again, it now it's dropping my pressure. And because it's dropping my pressure, what is it doing? It's dropping my temperature, yes. So I needed to drop the temperature. It's very, very important so I could get what's known as a heat transfer. So then that cold now refrigerant, because over here it was hot until it reached my metering device, then it starts to cool down. It goes into my evaporator and it goes all the way inside these coils into what's known my suction line and then back into my compressor. And then that cycle starts over and over and over again. All right. So as it's going into my evaporator, that refrigerant, what's starting to do is starting to have what's called a change of state. All right. So we have a change of state inside of my condenser, and we have a change of state inside of my evaporator. What do I mean by a change of state? Well, you either have what's called a gas or a liquid. Think of it as water. When water boils, what does your water tend to do? You start seeing all this steam, all these, all the gas, all this that's going on is that your water is evaporating and it's turning from a liquid to a gas. But then what happens to the water when it starts to cool down? The water starts to cool down and it starts to go from, once again, a change of state from a gas to a liquid. Your refrigerant works the same way. The same way. In here, think of it as water, right? In here, but now it's your refrigerant. Later on, we're going to go and talk about the different temperatures that this refrigerant works with on the changes of state. But just have an understanding that here, your condenser, inside of your condenser, here, the refrigerant goes from a gas and then it changes to a liquid. So maybe about halfway on that condenser, my refrigerant starts changing or starts condensing back into a liquid. You see how that works? You see why we have this named as a condenser? Because just like water condenses and changes back into a liquid, refrigerant condenses and changes back from a gas to a liquid. Now that liquid travels all the way to the metering device, and then into the metering device, it exits the metering device, and it's still in a form of liquid. And as it's traveling into my evaporator, just like I mentioned before, we have to have, and there is another change of state. The change of state, now, what happens to water when it boils? It evaporates, right? So that's why this component right here is known as my evaporator. This coil will be found inside of your AC system. So as your refrigerant starts traveling in here in a state of liquid, about halfway, it starts changing. Maybe about halfway, maybe almost exiting, we need it to be in a complete form of, or change of state of, from liquid to vapor, or liquid to gas. The very important thing that we have to understand is that if we have this refrigerant travel back into my compressor, it travels back into the compressor, but it cannot travel back in a form or a state of liquid. It cannot travel back in a state or form of liquid, because if it ever does, it's going to mess up the compressor, and it's going to mess up the whole entire air conditioning system, and now your efficiency on your air conditioning just drops down. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to keep up the efficiency and bring out the most efficiency that we can from our air conditioning system. So that's basically how your air conditioning system works on the basic cycle of refrigeration. Once again, you have your starting point is your compressor, and later on we're going to go into more details on the change of state of the refrigerants, but just understand this. Write down this, understand, and be aware that these four major components are what make up your air conditioning system: your compressor, your condenser, your metering device, and your evaporator. So I want to go ahead and thank you for coming and sticking around, watching this video. If you have any comments, go ahead and write them down. If you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the comments as well. Anything that you all would like to go ahead and see for any future videos that you would like for me to go ahead and answer on maybe on the basic cycle of refrigeration, or anything else that we go ahead and go over. Or if you have some experience out there in the field, feel free to go ahead and ask a question. Go ahead and ask questions, and whatever questions y'all have, I'll go ahead and try my best to go ahead and answer them. With that being said, stick around for the next video, and I hope you all get started and continue on your HVAC journey.